Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and watched the stars through the big window in front of him. His ship was moving through space faster than any human had ever traveled before. The crew of 200 people was excited and scared at the same time. They were going to meet aliens for the first time in human history. Dr. Lisa Kane walked up to Jake and looked at her tablet. She was the smartest person on the ship and knew everything about science. Her job was to study the aliens they were about to meet. She had been working for months to learn their language and understand their culture. "Captain, we will reach the meeting place in 2 hours," Lisa said. "The Zephyrians have been waiting for us at the space station. They sent a message saying they want to talk." Jake nodded and looked around the bridge. Ben Rodriguez was checking the security systems. He was in charge of keeping everyone safe. Amy Davis was listening to radio signals from space. She could talk to people far away using special machines. The meeting was supposed to be peaceful. The Zephyrians had found Earth many years ago, but never tried to contact humans until now. They said they wanted to be friends and help humans learn about space. Jake thought this sounded good, but something felt wrong. "What do we know about these aliens?" Jake asked Lisa. "They are very smart and have better technology than us. They live on many planets and have been traveling in space for a long time. Their leader is called High Commander Vestan. He controls a big army and many spaceships," Lisa explained. Ben Rodriguez came over and showed Jake his weapon. "Captain, I don't trust these aliens. Something about this meeting feels like a trap. Why would they wait so long to contact us?" Jake understood Ben's worry. Humans had always been careful about strangers. But this was different. These were aliens from another world. If humans wanted to explore space and find new places to live, they needed to make friends with other species. The USS Horizon arrived at the space station 2 hours later. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The station was made of metal that looked like it was glowing. Strange lights moved around the outside. Jake could see Zephyrian ships docked at the station. They looked like giant insects made of metal. "Captain, we are getting a message from the station," Amy said. "They want us to dock at Base 7. They say to bring only 5 people for the meeting." Jake picked his team carefully. He would go with Lisa, Ben, Dr. Peter Walsh, who knew many languages, and Karen Foster, who understood different cultures. The rest of the crew would stay on the ship and be ready to leave quickly if something went wrong. They put on their best uniforms and walked through the tunnel that connected their ship to the station. The air smelled different and felt heavy. Everything was much bigger than human size. The walls were covered with strange writing that glowed in the dark. 2 alien guards were waiting for them. Jake had seen pictures of Zephyrians, but meeting them in person was different. They were 7 feet tall with hard shells covering their bodies like armor. They had 4 arms and big black eyes. Their faces showed no expression. The guards did not speak. They just pointed down a long hallway. Jake and his team followed them through the station. They passed rooms full of alien technology that humans could not understand. Everything was designed for beings much larger and stronger than humans. They entered a huge room with a high ceiling. In the center was a table made of black metal. Around the table stood 20 Zephyrian warriors with weapons. At the head of the table sat High Commander Vestan. Vestan was bigger than the other aliens. His shell was covered with marks that showed his rank. He had scars on his face from old battles. When he looked at the humans, his eyes showed that he thought they were weak and stupid. "So these are the humans," Vestan said in perfect English. His voice was deep and made the floor shake. "You are smaller than I expected." Jake stepped forward and tried to look brave. "High Commander, thank you for meeting with us. We hope this can be the start of friendship between our species." Vestan made a sound that might have been laughter. "Friendship? You think we came here to be friends with you?" He stood up and walked around the table. "Look at you. You are weak. Your technology is primitive. Your species has barely left its home planet," Lisa tried to speak. "Commander, humans may not have advanced technology, but we have achieved great things. We have art, music, literature. We have learned to work together and solve problems. Art and music," Vestan repeated with disgust. "These things are for weak species. Strong species take what they want. We have conquered 17 star systems. We have destroyed civilizations that were much stronger than yours." Ben's hand moved toward his weapon, but Jake grabbed his arm. "Starting a fight here would mean death for all of them." Vestan continued speaking. "I will give you one chance because I am feeling generous today. Your species will surrender Earth to us. You will serve the Zephyrian Empire. Some of you will work in our mines. Others will be used for experiments. If you agree to this, most humans will be allowed to live. Karen Foster stepped forward. What if we refuse? Then your species will be eliminated, Vestan said simply. We have done this many times before. It is always easier when species surrender peacefully. To show how serious he was, Vestan turned to one of his own soldiers. The soldier had made a small mistake earlier by standing in the wrong place. Vestan pulled out a weapon and killed his own warrior without any warning. The soldier's body fell to the floor. This is what happens to those who do not follow orders perfectly, Vestan told the humans. Imagine what we will do to an entire species that refuses to obey. Jake felt sick but kept his face calm. He could not show fear in front of these aliens. How long do we have to decide? 30 of your Earth days, Vestan replied. Use this time to prepare your people for their new lives as our servants. Do not try to fight us. Many species have tried. All of them failed. The meeting was over. The guards led the humans back to their ship. Nobody spoke during the walk. They were all thinking about what they had just seen and heard. When they got back to the USS Horizon, Jake called his crew together. He told them everything that had happened at the meeting. Some people started to cry. Others became angry. Everyone was scared. What do we do now? Ben asked. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about Earth. He thought about all the people living there who did not know that aliens wanted to make them slaves. He thought about children playing in parks and families eating dinner together. All of that would end if the Zephyrians came to Earth. We go home, Jake said. We tell everyone what happened here. Then we get ready to fight. The USS Horizon flew back to Earth as fast as it could go. Captain Jake Morrison sent messages ahead to warn everyone about the Zephyrian threat. By the time his ship reached Earth, President Helen Carter had already called an emergency meeting of all the world's military leaders. Jake sat in a big room in Washington with the most important people on Earth. General Ross Taylor controlled the Army. Admiral Susan Brooks was in charge of all the spaceships. Dr. Lisa Kane was there too because she knew the most about the aliens. Tell us exactly what happened, President Carter said. Jake described the meeting with High Commander Vestan. He talked about how big and strong the Zephyrians were. He explained their advanced weapons and technology. When he finished, the room was quiet for a long time. General Taylor shook his head. We can't fight them. They have energy shields and plasma weapons. Our missiles and guns won't hurt their ships. Admiral Brooks looked at reports on her computer. They have faster ships than us, too. They can travel between stars in days while it takes us months. If they attack, we won't be able to run away. Everyone in the room felt hopeless. The aliens were too strong and too advanced. Earth had no chance of winning a war against them. But Dr. Lisa Kane had been thinking about something during the long trip home. She stood up and walked to the big screen on the wall. I was watching the Zephyrians carefully during our meeting, she said. Yes, they have better technology. But I noticed something important about how they think and act. She showed pictures of the alien space station and their ships. Look at how everything is organized. Every ship is in a perfect line. Every soldier stands in exactly the right place. They follow rules very strictly. What does that mean? President Carter asked. It means they are predictable, Lisa explained. They do the same things over and over. They have conquered many planets, but they always use the same methods. They rely on their technology to win quickly. Marine Colonel Ryan Clark had been quiet until now. He was a tough soldier who had fought in many wars. Dr. Kane is right. I've seen this before. Strong enemies who always win the same way become weak when someone changes the rules. He stood up and pointed to a map of Earth. In history, small armies have defeated big ones many times. The American colonists beat the British Empire. Vietnamese fighters defeated the United States military. How did they do it? They didn't fight the way their enemies expected. General Taylor frowned. But those were human armies fighting other humans. These are aliens with weapons we can't imagine. The weapons don't matter if we don't fight the way they expect, Colonel Clark replied. The Zephyrians think they know how wars work. Big fleets fight other big fleets in space. The stronger side wins. But what if we don't give them that kind of fight? Admiral Brooks started to understand. You mean guerrilla warfare? Hit-and-run attacks, make them fight our kind of war instead of theirs. Exactly, Colonel Clark said. We make them scared and confused. We attack when they don't expect it. We make them fight in ways they've never experienced before. President Carter looked around the room. What would this look like? Colonel Clark walked to the map. First, we don't try to protect everything at once. We let them think they're winning while we prepare surprises. We use small ships that can hide and move fast. We attack their supply lines and communication systems. But how do we hurt them if our weapons are too weak? General Taylor asked. Dr. Lisa Kane smiled for the first time since returning from the meeting. We don't need to destroy their ships. We need to destroy their confidence. The Zephyrians have never lost a war. They think they are the strongest species in the galaxy. What happens when they realize they might be wrong? Admiral Brooks was getting excited. We make them afraid. We do things they don't understand. We show them that humans are different from every other species they've conquered. The plan started to come together. Instead of building big warships to fight the aliens directly, they would prepare for a different kind of war. Small ships would be hidden throughout the solar system. Civilian vessels would be armed with weapons disguised as cargo containers. We need volunteers, Colonel Clark said. This won't be a normal war. Some of our people will have to sacrifice themselves to hurt the enemy. Not everyone will come home. Jake Morrison raised his hand. The crew of the USS Horizon volunteers. We've seen these aliens. We know what we're fighting for. Over the next weeks, Earth changed completely. Factories that made cars and computers started making weapons instead. Space stations became secret military bases. Regular people learned to be soldiers. Tony Mitchell was an engineer who worked on spaceships. He figured out how to make human vessels explode bigger than normal. If a ship was going to be destroyed anyway, it could take alien ships with it. Captain Derek Stone and Commander Rachel Woods were given special missions. They would command ships that hid in asteroid belts and behind planets. When the aliens came, these hidden ships would attack from places the Zephyrians didn't expect. Dr. Peter Walsh worked with the world's best computer experts. They created programs to jam alien communications. They also prepared broadcasts that would confuse and frighten the Zephyrians. The most important part of the plan was psychological warfare. Dr. Kane studied everything humans had learned about fear and intimidation. She wanted to create weapons that would attack the aliens' minds instead of just their ships. Every species has things they're afraid of, she explained to her team. The Zephyrians are afraid of losing control. They're afraid of facing an enemy they don't understand. We're going to become their worst nightmare. They recorded sounds from human history's bloodiest battles. They collected stories of human soldiers who kept fighting even when badly wounded. They gathered examples of people who chose death over surrender. Lieutenant Chris Baker and Sergeant Nicole Price volunteered for the most dangerous job. They would pilot small ships directly into alien vessels. Their job was not to win battles, but to show the Zephyrians that humans would rather die than give up. As the deadline got closer, everyone on Earth knew what was coming. Children were moved to safe places underground. Important buildings were hidden or protected. But most importantly, millions of people prepared to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen. President Carter spoke to the world on television. The aliens think we will surrender because other species always do. They don't understand that humans are different. We don't give up. We don't accept defeat. When someone tries to hurt our families and destroy our home, we fight back with everything we have. Admiral Brooks looked at the fleet of ships orbiting Earth. They were not as advanced as alien vessels, but they carried something the Zephyrians had never encountered. Crews who were not afraid to die for what they believed in. Captain Morrison walked through his ship and talked to his crew. Engineer Amy Davis had rigged the engines to explode if needed. Navigator Lucy Turner had memorized secret routes through the solar system. Weapons Officer Alex Chen had practiced ramming techniques that would seem insane to any logical military mind. "Are you ready?" Jake asked them. "We're ready to show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our home," Amy replied. The 30 days were almost over. Sensors detected the Zephyrian fleet approaching Earth. High Commander Vestan expected to find humans preparing to surrender. Instead, he was about to encounter something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. On Earth, millions of people looked up at the stars and waited. They knew they were about to fight the most important battle in human history. They also knew they were going to fight it in a way that would teach the universe a lesson about underestimating the human spirit. The Zephyrian invasion fleet arrived exactly when High Commander Vestan said it would. 100 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with one shot. Vestan sat in his command chair and looked at Earth through the main viewing screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and defenseless. He expected to see human ships approaching with white flags of surrender. Instead, his sensors detected something that made no sense. "Commander, there are human vessels approaching, but they are not in formation," reported his tactical officer Zixtar. "They appear to be moving randomly. Some are broadcasting surrender messages while others are sending what seems to be their primitive music." Vestan frowned. In all his years of conquest, enemy species had always responded to his arrival in predictable ways. They either surrendered immediately or gathered their fleets for a hopeless final battle. This chaotic approach was new. The first wave of human ships came from different directions. Some flew straight at the Zephyrian fleet while others seemed to be running away. The lead ship was broadcasting a message from Captain Jake Morrison. "Zephyrian fleet, this is the USS Horizon. We surrender. Please don't hurt our families. We're bringing representatives to discuss terms." But even as Jake's ship transmitted surrender messages, other human vessels were acting strangely. Small fighter craft piloted by volunteers like Lieutenant Chris Baker were flying directly at Zephyrian warships. These tiny vessels could not possibly damage the alien ships, so their purpose was unclear. "Commander, the small human craft are on collision courses with our ships," Zixtar reported. "Should we destroy them?" "No, let them come," Vexathon replied with amusement. "I want the other humans to see how useless their primitive technology is against our shields." The first human fighter, piloted by Chris Baker, struck the hull of a Zephyrian destroyer. The explosion was small and caused no real damage to the alien ship. But something unexpected happened. Instead of being vaporized instantly, Baker's ship had been rigged with special explosives that created a massive flash of light and a burst of radio signals. More human fighters followed, each one crashing into Zephyrian vessels. The attacks did no significant damage, but they filled space with bright flashes, confusing signals and debris. The neat formation of the alien fleet began to lose its perfect order as ships moved to avoid the kamikaze attacks. "What are they trying to accomplish?" Vextan wondered out loud. "These attacks are pointless, but the real purpose became clear moments later. While the Zephyrians were distracted by the seemingly suicidal human fighters, hidden ships commanded by Captain Derek Stone and Commander Rachel Woods emerged from behind asteroids and from within the rings of Saturn. These vessels had been waiting in silence for weeks. They carried weapons designed by engineer Tony Mitchell, not to destroy Zephyrian ships but to disable their communications and sensors. Electromagnetic pulse devices exploded near the alien fleet, creating confusion in their electronic systems. "Commander, we're losing contact with several ships," Zixtar reported with concern. "The humans have some kind of jamming technology." For the first time in his military career, Vextan felt uncertain. His fleet was still intact and could easily destroy Earth, but the human tactics made no logical sense. Why sacrifice ships for no strategic gain? Why attack systems instead of weapons? Why broadcast music during a space battle? Dr. Lisa Kane's psychological warfare campaign began at that moment. Human ships started transmitting recordings that she had prepared specifically to confuse the Zephyrian mind. The broadcasts included audio from Earth's bloodiest conflicts, soldiers screaming battle cries, the sounds of ancient warriors charging into hopeless fights, and the voices of humans who chose death over surrender. Mixed with these historical recordings were testimonials from human veterans. Marine Colonel Ryan Clark's voice came over the radio describing battles where outnumbered human forces had fought to the last person rather than retreat. Stories of soldiers who continued fighting even after being mortally wounded. Accounts of civilians who died protecting their children rather than surrender them to invaders. "By the 7 moons, what kind of species are we fighting?" Zixtar whispered as he listened to the human broadcasts. The transmissions also included something the Zephyrians found deeply disturbing: human laughter. Not the laughter of joy, but the bitter laughter of people who had nothing left to lose. The sound of humans laughing in the face of certain death. Vextan ordered his ships to stop listening to the human broadcasts, but the damage was already done. His warriors, who had conquered 17 star systems without ever questioning their own superiority, were now hearing about an enemy that seemed to welcome death as long as they could hurt their attackers in return. The next phase of the human strategy involved Captain Morrison's ship, the USS Horizon. Jake had pretended to surrender but was actually carrying out the most dangerous part of the plan. His ship approached the center of the Zephyrian formation while broadcasting pleas for mercy. "Please, we don't want to fight anymore," Jake transmitted. "Our ship is damaged. We need medical assistance for our wounded crew members." The Zephyrians had seen this before. Defeated enemies often tried to get close enough to attempt a last desperate attack. Vestan was not concerned because human weapons could not penetrate Zephyrian shields, but Jake was not carrying conventional weapons. Dr. Peter Walsh had designed a massive electromagnetic pulse device that would disable every electronic system within 10 miles. The plan required the USS Horizon to get close enough to the Zephyrian command ships to cause maximum disruption. "Let the damaged human vessel approach," Vestan ordered. "When they try their pathetic attack, destroy them as an example to the others." Jake's ship limped toward the alien fleet, trailing debris and broadcasting distress signals. On board, his crew prepared for what would likely be their final mission. Engineer Amy Davis had armed the electromagnetic weapon. Navigator Lucy Turner plotted their escape route, knowing they probably would not survive to use it. Weapons Officer Alex Chen monitored the Zephyrian ships, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Captain, we're in range," Amy reported. "Do it," Jake ordered. The electromagnetic pulse device detonated with a force that surprised even the humans. The explosion created a wave of energy that disabled the electronic systems of 20 Zephyrian ships, including Vestan's flagship. Emergency power came on after a few minutes, but the damage to alien morale was severe. "How did they know exactly where to strike?" Vestan demanded. "How did they predict our formation?" The answer was that humans had been studying Zephyrian tactics for weeks. Dr. Kane had identified patterns in how they positioned their ships and predicted their responses to different situations. The aliens followed rules so strictly that they became predictable. While the Zephyrian fleet struggled to restore full power, more human ships attacked from unexpected angles. Sergeant Nicole Price led a squadron of fighters that emerged from the dark side of Earth's moon. Captain Julie Baker commanded vessels that had been hiding in the clouds of Jupiter. Each human attack was carefully planned to cause maximum confusion rather than maximum damage. Ships that seemed to be retreating would suddenly turn and ram alien vessels. Vessels that appeared to be destroyed would explode again just when Zephyrian rescue teams approached them. "Commander, they're not fighting to win," Zixtar observed. "They're fighting to make us afraid." Vestan realized his tactical officer was right. Every human action seemed designed to demonstrate that this species would never surrender, never retreat, and never stop fighting no matter how hopeless their situation became. It was a form of warfare the Zephyrians had never encountered. The most disturbing moment came when a badly damaged human ship, commanded by Captain Sam Rodriguez, was surrounded by 3 Zephyrian destroyers. Instead of surrendering or trying to escape, Rodriguez broadcast a message directly to Vestan. "This is for everyone you've enslaved," Rodriguez said calmly. Then his ship exploded with enough force to damage 2 of the surrounding alien vessels. Vestan stared at the expanding cloud of debris where the human ship had been. Rodriguez had chosen to die rather than be captured. His final words suggested that humans saw this battle as more than just survival. They saw it as revenge for every species the Zephyrians had conquered. Reports from across the fleet painted the same picture. Human crews who should have been terrified were instead laughing, singing, and making jokes even as their ships were being destroyed. They acted as if dying in battle was an honor, rather than a tragedy. For the first time in centuries, Zephyrian warriors began to question whether they wanted to continue fighting. They had signed up to conquer weak species who would surrender when faced with superior force. They had not expected to fight an enemy that seemed to become more dangerous the closer they came to death. The war had been going on for 2 weeks, and High Commander Vestan was experiencing something completely new: doubt. His fleet still outnumbered the humans 10-1. His weapons were still far superior. His ships could still destroy Earth whenever he chose. But his warriors were no longer the confident conquerors who had arrived expecting an easy victory. Reports from across his fleet told the same disturbing story. Human fighters who continued attacking even after their ships were critically damaged. Human crews who laughed while their vessels were being destroyed. Human commanders who chose to explode their own ships rather than let them be captured. "Commander, we have lost contact with the reconnaissance squadron that was sent to investigate the human moon base," reported Zixtar, his tactical officer. The worry in Zixtar's voice was something Vexthan had never heard before. What happened to them? Vexthan demanded. Unknown, sir. Their last transmission was unusual. The squadron leader reported hearing human laughter coming from the base's communication system. Then all signals stopped. Vexthan decided to investigate personally. He would lead an assault on the moon base himself and show his warriors how to deal with these strange humans. The base appeared lightly defended, commanded by Marine Colonel Ryan Clark with a small force of engineers and soldiers. The moon base, called Luna Station, looked like an easy target. Human sensors showed only 50 defenders inside. Vexthan brought 200 of his best warriors. They landed their ships on the moon's surface and marched toward the base in perfect formation, just as they had done on dozens of other worlds. Humans of Luna Station. Vexthan broadcast as his forces surrounded the base. Surrender now and you will be treated as prisoners of war. Resist and you will all die. The response came from Colonel Clark himself. Zephyrian forces, this is Colonel Ryan Clark. I have a message for your commander. Come and take it. Vexthan was puzzled by the casual tone in the human's voice. There was no fear, no desperation, just a calm invitation to fight. Every other species he had conquered had begged for mercy at this point. The Zephyrian assault began at dawn. Vexthan's warriors blasted through the outer walls and entered the base's corridors. But something was immediately wrong. The humans had rigged speakers throughout the entire facility. As the alien forces advanced, they were surrounded by sounds that attacked their minds rather than their bodies. The speakers broadcast a mixture of human battle cries from throughout history. Ancient Celtic war songs mixed with Viking berserker chants. The screams of Japanese samurai charging into battle combined with the voices of Native American warriors. World War II soldiers yelling as they stormed beaches. Vietnam War troops calling out coordinates during jungle firefights. But most disturbing of all was the laughter. Human voices laughing with the wild joy of people who had accepted death and found freedom in that acceptance. The sound echoed through the metal corridors and seemed to come from everywhere at once. Vexthan's nephew, Sub-Commander Thylex, led the advance team deeper into the base. The young Zephyrian had never experienced real combat before. He expected the humans to retreat or surrender as his forces moved forward. Instead, they encountered something that violated every principle of rational military behavior. Human defenders who seemed to feel no fear. Engineer Kevin Murphy fought with improvised weapons made from maintenance tools. Sarah Johnson used explosive devices rigged from cleaning supplies. They moved through the corridors as if they were playing a game rather than fighting for their lives. Uncle, these humans are not acting normally, Thylex reported over his radio. They are not trying to preserve their lives. They seem to want to die as long as they can hurt us first. The breakthrough moment came when Thylex cornered a wounded human soldier in one of the base's equipment rooms. Private Matt Stevens was bleeding badly and could barely stand. His weapon was empty and he had no way to escape. By every rule of warfare, he should have surrendered. Thylex approached with his weapon drawn, expecting the traditional plea for mercy. Instead, Stevens looked up at the 7-foot alien warrior and started laughing. It was not the laughter of madness, but something worse. The laughter of a person who had found something funny in the face of certain death. What are you laughing at, human? Thylex demanded. You, Stevens replied, still chuckling. You actually think this is a victory. You think capturing one room in one base on one moon means something. You have no idea what you've gotten yourselves into. Before Thylex could respond, Stevens activated a hidden device that collapsed part of the station's structure. He did not use the explosion to kill the alien warrior. Instead, he used it to trap Thylex's forces in that section of the base, while human civilians evacuated through hidden tunnels. Stevens died in the collapse, but his sacrifice ensured that non-combatants would escape safely. This act of selflessness for the protection of people who could not fight was completely incomprehensible to the Zephyrian military mind. Why did he do that? Thylex asked his uncle over the radio. He could have killed me, but instead he died to save people who were not even soldiers. This makes no tactical sense. Vexthan had no answer. In Zephyrian culture, warriors conquered by targeting civilians to force military surrender. The idea of soldiers dying to protect non-fighters was not just foreign to them. It was impossible for them to understand. News of Stevens's sacrifice spread quickly through the Zephyrian ranks. Carried by Dr. Lisa Kane's psychological warfare broadcasts, the story grew in the telling, as stories do during wartime. Soon, Zephyrian warriors were hearing about humans who fought on after being mortally wounded, who turned their own bodies into weapons, who seemed to draw strength from hopeless situations. Admiral Susan Brooks coordinated the final phase of the human strategy from her command center on Earth. She had been waiting for the perfect moment to launch their most desperate gamble. Every remaining human vessel would attack the Zephyrian command ship at the same time. Captain Jake Morrison volunteered to lead the assault even though his ship was barely functional. The USS Horizon had been patched together with spare parts and determination. His crew had been reduced to essential personnel: navigator Lucy Turner, weapons officer Alex Chen, engineer Amy Davis, and communications specialist Tony Mitchell. "This is probably a suicide mission," Jake told his crew. "Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship can do so now." Nobody moved. Amy Davis spoke for all of them. "Captain, we didn't come this far to quit now. These aliens need to learn that humans don't surrender." The attack began at midnight Earth time. Human ships approached the Zephyrian flagship from multiple directions simultaneously. To outside observers, it looked like chaos. Ships seemed to be flying randomly with no coordination or planning, but the timing was perfect, and the apparent disorder was carefully orchestrated. Captain Julie Baker commanded the Northern Attack Wing. Commander Sam Rodriguez led vessels from the southern approach. Captain Derek Stone brought his ships from behind the moon while Commander Rachel Woods emerged from the asteroid belt. Each group attacked at exactly the same moment, creating maximum confusion among the Zephyrian defenders. Vexthan's flagship, the Devourer of Worlds, was the largest and most powerful ship in the alien fleet. Its weapons could destroy a dozen human vessels with each shot. Its shields could deflect any attack the humans could launch. But Vextan himself was no longer the confident commander who had arrived to conquer Earth. "How are they coordinating these attacks?" he demanded. "Their ships appear to be acting independently, but their timing is perfect." "How is this possible?" The answer was that humans had learned to work together in ways the Zephyrians could not predict. Instead of rigid command structures, they used flexible communication networks. Instead of following predetermined battle plans, they adapted to changing situations. Instead of preserving their forces for future battles, they committed everything to the current fight. Jake Morrison's ship, now held together by emergency repairs and stubborn determination, approached the alien flagship. His crew had one final surprise prepared. Instead of weapons or explosives, the USS Horizon carried Dr. Peter Walsh's most ambitious creation, a massive communication array that could broadcast on every frequency the Zephyrians used. "Captain, we're in range," Amy reported from her position at the engineering station. "Begin the transmission," Jake ordered. The broadcast that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever heard. Dr. Kane had prepared a compilation of human history's greatest acts of defiance and sacrifice. Stories of people who held impossible positions against overwhelming odds. Accounts of individuals who died rather than surrender their beliefs. Records of explorers who walked into certain death for the sake of knowledge. The transmission included audio recordings from human history. The voices of soldiers at the Battle of Thermopylae choosing death over surrender. The words of pilots during the Battle of Britain fighting against impossible odds. The final messages of astronauts who knew their missions would not bring them home alive. But the most powerful part of the broadcast was its conclusion. Dr. Kane's own voice, calm and clear, delivered a message directly to every Zephyrian warrior. "This is what humans do. We don't surrender. We don't break. And we never ever give up." High Commander Vexithan stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched human ships attacking from all directions. The battle had been going on for hours, and his forces were still winning by every measurable standard. They had destroyed more human vessels than they had lost. Their weapons were still superior. Their technology was still more advanced, but Vexithan no longer felt like he was winning. His warriors were reporting things that made no sense. Human crews who continued fighting after their ships lost power. Human commanders who steered damaged vessels directly into Zephyrian ships rather than try to escape. Human voices on the radio singing songs while their bases were being overrun. "Commander, the human flagship is approaching our position," reported Zixtar. "It appears to be barely functional. Should we destroy it?" Vextan looked at the approaching vessel on his main screen. The USS Horizon was held together with makeshift repairs and emergency patches. Pieces of hull plating were missing. One of its engines was not working. It should have been retreating to Earth for repairs, not attacking the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian fleet. Let it come, Vexathon decided. I want to capture the human commander alive. Perhaps interrogating him will help us understand how to break these creatures' will to fight. Captain Jake Morrison guided his crippled ship through the space battle around him. Human vessels, commanded by officers like Captain Julie Baker and Commander Sam Rodriguez, were executing their final desperate attacks. They knew most of them would not survive, but they also knew their sacrifice might give Earth a chance to survive. Captain, the Zephyrian flagship is not firing at us, reported Navigator Lucy Turner. They want us alive. That's what we're counting on, Jake replied. Amy, is the communication array ready? Engineer Amy Davis checked her instruments. The transmitter is at full power. We'll have maybe 30 seconds before they realize what we're doing and jam our signal. Tony, are you ready with the final message? Jake asked. Communications specialist Tony Mitchell nodded from his position. Dr. Kane's broadcast is loaded and ready. Every Zephyrian in the fleet will hear it. The USS Horizon drifted closer to the alien flagship. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a defeated enemy limping toward surrender. They had no idea that Jake's ship contained the most powerful psychological weapon ever deployed in space warfare. Vestan prepared to board the human vessel. He selected his most trusted warriors and made ready to capture the human commander. He planned to break Jake Morrison's spirit and use him as an example to show other humans the futility of resistance. Begin transmission, Jake ordered when his ship was close enough to penetrate Zephyrian communication shields. Dr. Lisa Kane's voice filled every Zephyrian ship in the fleet. Her words were broadcast on all frequencies, impossible to block or ignore. She spoke directly to the alien warriors in their own language, using psychological techniques designed to exploit their deepest fears. Warriors of the Zephyrian Empire, she began. You came here expecting to conquer another weak species. You thought humans would surrender when faced with your superior technology. You were wrong. The broadcast included recordings from human history that Kane had carefully selected to demonstrate the human capacity for sacrifice. Audio from soldiers who held their positions until death rather than retreat. Voices of civilians who chose torture over betraying their families. Words of prisoners who died rather than provide information to their captors. You have fought many species, Kane continued, but you have never fought humans. We are not like the others you have conquered. When you destroy our ships, we build new ones. When you kill our soldiers, more volunteers take their place. When you think you have defeated us, we find new ways to fight. But the most devastating part of the broadcast was what came next. Kane had recorded testimonials from human fighters throughout the fleet. Ordinary people explaining why they were willing to die to protect their homeworld. Private Matt Stevens's last words played over Zephyrian speakers. You think capturing one room means victory. You have no idea what you've gotten yourselves into. Captain Sam Rodriguez's final message echoed through alien ships. This is for everyone you've enslaved. The voice of Lieutenant Chris Baker, who had died in the first kamikaze attack, spoke from beyond the grave. Tell my family I was proud to serve. Tell the aliens they picked the wrong species to threaten. Vestan tried to order his communications officers to stop the broadcast, but it was too late. Every warrior in his fleet had heard human voices expressing not fear or despair, but determination and defiance. They heard people choosing death over surrender and finding joy in that choice. Commander, Zixtar said quietly, our troops are requesting permission to withdraw. Vestan could not believe what he was hearing. Withdraw? We are winning this battle. Sir, the humans are not fighting like any enemy we have encountered before. Our warriors they are afraid. For the first time in his military career, Vexathon understood what his subordinate meant. Zephyrian troops were trained to fight rational opponents who valued their own lives. They had no experience dealing with enemies who seemed to become more dangerous the more desperate their situation became. The psychological warfare campaign had succeeded beyond Dr. Kane's wildest expectations. Zephyrian warriors began refusing orders to board human ships because they feared what they might find inside. Entire squadrons reported equipment malfunctions rather than continue attacking human positions. The rigid discipline that held the alien military together was cracking under pressure it had never been designed to withstand. Reports from across the Zephyrian fleet painted the same picture. Human defenders who laughed while their positions were being overrun, Human pilots who sang songs while crashing their ships into alien vessels. Human commanders who treated certain death as a victory rather than a defeat. "Sir, I'm receiving a priority message from Zephyrian High Command," Zixtar reported. "They want to know why our conquest is taking so long." Vestan stared at the tactical display showing the battle around Earth. By every military standard, the Zephyrians should have won days ago. They had superior numbers, better weapons, and more advanced technology. But somehow they were losing. They were losing because they had never fought an enemy that refused to accept defeat. Every human ship they destroyed was replaced by 2 more volunteers. Every human position they captured was immediately attacked by civilian fighters with improvised weapons. Every victory they achieved made the remaining humans more determined to resist. The final breaking point came when Vestan's own crew began to question their mission. Young warriors who had joined the military expecting glorious conquests of weak species now faced the reality of fighting enemies who welcomed death if it meant protecting their families. "Commander," one of his junior officers said hesitantly, "perhaps we should consider the humans' earlier offer to negotiate." Vestan turned in surprise. "What offer? The humans have never offered to negotiate. Sir, they have been broadcasting the same message for 3 days. They say they are willing to discuss terms if we withdraw our forces beyond Earth's moon." Vestan realized he had been so focused on military tactics that he had ignored human attempts at diplomacy. But now, faced with troops who were losing their will to fight, negotiation seemed like the only alternative to a war that could drag on indefinitely. The meeting took place on the same neutral space station where the crisis had begun 4 weeks earlier. But this time the atmosphere was completely different. Vestan arrived with a small delegation, no longer confident of Zephyrian superiority. Captain Morrison represented humanity, accompanied by Dr. Kane and Admiral Brooks. "Commander Vestan," Jake began, "we are prepared to discuss peace terms." "What are your demands?" Vestan asked, expecting the humans to request their independence and nothing more. "We want you to leave Earth and never return," Jake replied. "We also want you to free every species you have enslaved and end your empire of conquest." Vestan was shocked by the scope of human demands. "You are hardly in a position to make such requests." "We still have the superior fleet," Dr. Kane leaned forward. "Commander, your fleet may be superior in technology, but your warriors no longer want to fight us. How long do you think you can maintain discipline when your troops are afraid of an enemy they don't understand?" The negotiations continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on the assumption that all rational species would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Humans had proven that assumption wrong, and word of human resistance was already spreading to other enslaved worlds. 6 months later, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of Earth's new orbital defense platform. The structure had been built with technology freely shared by the Zephyrians and other alien species who wanted humanity as an ally rather than an enemy. Dr. Kane joined him at the large viewing window. "The Galactic Council meeting went well," she reported. 7 more species have requested human advisors to help them develop defensive strategies." Jake nodded as he looked out at Earth below. "It's strange how quickly things changed. 6 months ago we were facing extinction. Now everyone wants us on their side." "Fear is a powerful motivator," Kane observed.